Hello everyone, I'm Karan Singh. Today we gonna have a live session. Just give me a second. Okay, so yeah, as you all know, today we're gonna have a session on the concept of loops. And today I am Karan Singh, upcoming intern at Adobe and a mentor and a mock intern at AccioJobs. So today we're gonna see how so basically we're gonna take your concept of programming on loops throughout this session, and in between if you get any doubt on the concept of loops, you can put your question on the chats, and throughout the session in between or after the session I'll take your question one by one and we'll see if you get any doubt. So yeah, we can start the session. So just give me a second, I'll share my screen. Okay, I hope it's visible. So today, first we're gonna see all the concept of loops, the type of loops that we have in general and specifically for Java also. But we're gonna start why we need loops first, and after that we're gonna see what are the things that we can help us in implementing the loops concept in Java, and after that we're gonna see how we can implement that. So at last, I'll be coding all the concept of loops to give all the examples that you guys need in order to learn all the things in depth. So yeah, we can start with that. So first of all, let's say why we need loops. So let's say you write some piece of code in your compiler. Okay, so as you all know, there's a our compiler basically interpreted our code line by line, right? So first line of code will get printed. After that, second line of code get printed. Third line of code then get printed, so on and so forth. So let's say I have to print some block of code any number of time. Let's say I have to print this block of code some, let's say, five number of time or six number of times. So what else we can do instead of repetition of the code or like copying and pasting a code? What else we can do? So I need to tell my compiler or my interpreter that, see, you need to print this five number of times or 10 number of times. So the language that we need to or the process that we need to tell them, their loops come. So this is how we need it. Let's say you need to print anything. Let's say in Java you use uh, you system dot out, but I'm just saying, let's say we need to print hello only, right? So we need to print it for one number of times, so we can directly write it down like this, right? So let's say now I need to print this for two times. So what else I can do? I can just copy and paste it. Let's say I need to print it for three times. I paste it again. So this is how we can do for five number of times. Okay, we can just copy the same statement and then print it for the five number of times. So see, our task is to print the hello for five number of times. So we are able to achieve our goal. But is this a correct way? No, this is not, because here the code repetition and code redundancy is there, because we are just using the same statement and we are using that five number of times. So there is a repetition. So this is not a correct way or a good way of writing a code. So we should avoid these type of things. So if what else we can do is, if we have something like just give me a second, if we have something which help us only like, I just write only one time. Okay, I just write only one time my print statement and it's get printed for the five number of time. So let's say it get printed for five number of times. So what I need is, this is the piece of block of code that I was talking about, and I have to put this into the loop. And let's say there are majorly three type of loop, but let's say we are just giving it as a name of a loop right now. So this is what we need for the to reduce a repetition and redundancy of the code. So now if I need to print this any number of time, I can provide a number to it and this will be printed for any number of time, right? So this is the reason why we need loops. So I hope it is clear to reduce the repetition and redundancy into our code. So now let's see why means what are the things that we can use in order to implement loops, and what are the type of loops we have. So just give me a second. So let's talk about type of loops that we have. So first type of loops we have is while loop. The second is do while loop, and the third is for loop. So the basic functionality of three of them is same. The three of them is going to be used for like to reduce the repetency, but just they have a syntax difference and a bit of a difference in their execution. But there is that similarity that three of them is have, or the requirement that we need in order to implement any kind of loop is first we need initialization. Just keep this in mind that what are the just three things that we're talking about, and in depth we're going to see how three of them require these three things. So first is initialization. The initialization of what, we'll talk about that in depth. So after that we need a condition, and the last thing that we need is the increment or decrement. Increment or decrement of what? So we'll see how these three things is going to help us to implement these three type of loops. So let's talk about the first type of loops that we have, while loop. So the syntax for the while loop is we're going to use the statement while, and after that we need that block of code. These curly braces will be the block of code in which the while loop will have command for. So in between, if we have any type of task, let's say we need to print anything, or we need to multiply two numbers. So whatever the task we need to implement, that will be implemented within this curly braces, and a condition will be in the parentheses. So here the condition will be there. So you'll say the condition is there, but where is the increment and where is the initialization of the code? So we'll talk about that, but first get the flow of it. So first, let's say when our compiler gets that okay, here is we need to go into a while loop. So it see the conditions. So if the condition is true, this parenthesis will only check for the condition. So if the condition is true, then only it will go into this piece of code. Otherwise it will have a different path, and it will start executing the line of code after the while loop, where the while loop is ending, right? So we need to make sure that this condition is true. But how and why, like where we're gonna change the conditions? Basically we have to stop it, right? Otherwise just assume that you have a water bottle and you are pouring water to it, right? It get filled, and after that you are still pouring water to it, and you are not stopping, so it get overflowed. So when it is getting overflowed, because you haven't stopped going into that, right? So while loop is executing itself because the condition is not false right now. So what we need in order to stop that is we need to put a cap on a water bottle, so that the water will stop going into that, and there will be no like water flowing outside the water, right? So that is the reason we need a stoppage, or we need to change a condition to the false, right? So when we make that, then so first the condition is checked, and after that it will go into the means whatever the task is there, it will be implemented. So it's again check the condition and then implement the task. So this will be the flow. First the condition will be checked, and then it will be print, or it will perform any task within that while loop. So if in between we make that condition as false, so we will definitely gonna come out of the loop. But if not, if we do not make the condition false, so what gonna happen is it will cause an infinite loop. And when it causes an infinite loop, then either our compiler is going to be get hang, or terminal is going to be hang, or we need to cause an interrupt in order to stop that. So always try to avoid infinite loops, and always keep this in mind that you need to put a stopping condition. So now we'll see how we can print, or the exact statement of the while loop that we have. So first I said we need an initialization. So let's say I have to print a number from I is equals to 1 to I is equals to 10. Okay, so what else we can do? We need something, uh, because if we are using Java, we are printing a variable which holds a value, so it will get incremented, and we have a range from 1 to 10, so it will get incremented. So first will be initialization. So let's say we have a variable int I is equals to 1. Okay. After that, we're gonna say this is a while loop. There will be a condition, and till where we need to go. So our stopping condition will be when I is less than 10 and equals to 10. So this will be our stopping condition. So and in between we can print a like we can perform a task. So let's say you can use system.out.println, and you can put your I in that, but I'm just writing a pseudo code, so I'm writing down it as print. So I can print my I here, right? So first one will get printed, then 2, then like up to the 10, right? Just give me a second. What will be the output for this? If we are not incrementing our I, then it will cause an infinite loop, because I will always increment it by 1. And decrement can be done by your end. Like you can increase the number. Let's say we increment it by 1, right? So hello, we are back online, right? I hope it's clear. Am I audible? Okay, now I guess I'm audible, right? Sorry for the inconvenience. Okay, great. Okay, so we are on our while loop. So just give me a second. Yeah, so okay, okay, yeah, thank you. My voice is clear. Right. Okay, so the output that we're talking about for this while loop is, so the output will be 1, because I is starting from 1, and after that it get incremented. It again check is 2 is less than equal to 10. Yes, it is. It will go inside the loop and then print a statement. So this is how it's going to be. So it will print 2. After that it will going to print 3 up to 10. It will gonna print our value, right? So when it comes to 10, it's C, 10 is less than or equals to 10, means it is equal. So a condition holds true right now. So it will print our value 10, and after that it will I will get incremented to 11. Now when it checks the condition is I is less than equal to 11, then the problem occurs because 11 is not equals like it is not great less than 10, so it is a false statement. So our program will not go into a while loop, and after that whatever the line of code we have after the while loop, it will start executing that. So our output will be this only. So this will be the case for increment. So let's say this was for the increment. Now let's talk about for the decrement, because we have that as well. So let's say here also we have an variable I, because initialization is required. So that is equals to 10, right? And after that, we're gonna again use that while keyword. And here I will be greater than and equal to 0, because we are starting from 10. We will go on decreasing, and we need a point we need to stop, right? So this is why I'm just using 0. You can use 5, you can use 2, you can put any condition up to you want your I to be printed, right? So and here we can perform a task. So what a task is to print I, right? So this will be our program for decrement. And of course, if we are decreasing, what we can do is I minus minus. I minus minus is basically nothing, just equals to just I'll write the I should equals to I minus 1. So what its value, we are just gonna subtract 1 from it. So this is what I minus minus means. It's a post decrement. So first I will perform its task, and after that it will be decreased. So if we are writing something like uh, I hope you guys are clear with this concept. If we are writing something like minus minus I, this is a decrement. So first I will get decrease, and after that it will execute the line. So this is the difference between a post decrement and a post like pre decrement. So similarly, it works for the I plus plus as well. So in this condition, our output will be just a second. Okay, so output for this condition will be first 10 will get printed at 9, because I is starting from 10, then it get decreased to 9, after that 8, and this is how it's gonna print up to 0. So this will be for the while loop. So I hope it is clear the concept of while loop that we have, right? Is it clear? Okay. So now after this while loop, we have a do while loop. So what it means, let start from it. So for do while loop also, let's say do while loop. This is the syntax for the do while loop. Means this is a keyword that we use for the do while loop, and the syntax will be first we need to write do. We are telling our compiler that do something in the piece like block of code that we have, and after that we're gonna have our while loop at last, and here will be our condition. So here will be our condition, right? So and in between we need to perform the task. So this is our task that we need to perform, right? So this is what do while says, like in while, if the first statement is wrong itself, let's say if we are starting I is equals to 10, our condition is it should be less than 10 only. So it is false. So it will not go inside the while loop for the very first time itself, right? But in the do while loop, what will happen is it will execute whatever we have inside the inside the loop for the one, like, for the very first time, and after that it will check the condition. So one time at least here the task will be performed, and after that we will look for the conditions, right? So this is the major difference that we have for the do while loop, and the rest of the thing is similar to the while loop. So I'll just quickly write down the exact syntax for it. Just a second. So let's say we have another variable I is equals to 0, and we are starting our do while loop and we need to print anything. So let's say we are printing our I here, and our while condition will be for I less than and equal to 10. So what will happen in this particular scenario is, first we are not going to check the condition. First print will happen for the very first time, and after that we will see ki, is the condition is true or not. So this is the major difference that you guys need to keep in mind, right? So let's say a condition was wrong. This was, we are saying I should not be equals to 0, right? I should not be equals to 0, and I can be anything, but I should not be equals to 0. And we are performing this while loop. So initially I is equals to 0, it will go into a do while loop, and we will print 0 for the first time because we are not checking the condition here first. But after that, we'll see, okay, it should not be equals to 0, but it is right now. So what gonna happen is, similarly to the while loop, we're just gonna break our while condition and go and start performing all the tasks or the line of code that we have after the while loop. So we will not go inside the do while loop again. So this is the major difference that we have for the do while loop. So similarly here also, for the increment and decrement, you can like play with your code, like have some different kind of initialization, have different conditions, have different increment and decrement. Like you can start like keeps on multiplying I with 5 and see, like let's say I should be less than equals to 100, and we are starting I from 1. We print I, and I should equals to I multiplied by 5. So how many times C it gonna print your I? What will be the value of I is going to be printed? You can go along and play with the do while loop, because if you get the concept of the while loop, so do while loop is really easy. The one major concept that you need to keep in mind is, in do while loop, for the very first time your task will be initiated and will be performed, and after that the condition will be checked. But in the while loop, first the condition will be checked, and after that your and after that in the while loop, first the condition will check and then it will perform. And here, first, for the very first time, it will perform the task and then it check the condition. If it is true, then it keeps on doing the task, otherwise it's go beyond the while loop, right? So great. So now we'll come to our last loop that we has for loop, which is like widely used loop, right? So let's say let have a syntax for the for loop. So the syntax for the for loop is, we have some semicolons here. Like I'll fill what is required in these particular gaps. Okay, then we're gonna perform the task. Okay, so let's say we are again printing the value of I. So see, in in this particular block, in this particular block, and this particular block will be the same thing that we are doing previously here. Let's say what we are doing first, we need initialization, right? Initialization. So first initialization will be there. After that we need condition. So we need condition, of course, because we need to stop from getting into the infinite loop. So the second block that we have is for the condition, and the third thing that we need is increment, right? Increment or decrement. Right, just a second. So this is what we have for the basic of for loop. This is the conditions that we have. So in this particular blocks, you need to put those conditions. So this is the basic syntax that you have for the for loop. You can take the screenshot of it. And after that, yes, I'm going to perform with the original syntax as well with the compiler also. So see, I said first we need initialization. So let's say in the while loop or in the for do while loop, we are initializing I like before the loop starts. So here we get the privilege to start within the parenthesis as well. So let's say int I is equals to 0, right? And after that we need condition. So up to what we need to perform. Let's say I should less than equal to 10, and after that we need increment or decrement. Let's say I is increasing by 1. So this is the task, this is the basic difference in the syntax for the while loop or do while loop or in the for loop. So we here these three channels, that the three blocks that we have, it can be empty also, because it will check do we have the condition or do we have the initialization. If not, there's no issue. You can initialize your I before the for loop as well, like this also. So you have your I int I is equals to 0, and you just put I here as 0, or just remove this as well, and you can put I is equals to 0 as well here. So this piece of block will be empty. But is it wrong? No, this will not be wrong, because we are initializing our I. So either you can initialize in the for loop itself, or if you want the scope of I beyond the for loop, so you can initialize above the for loop, so that after you can use I here as well. But if you initialize your I in the for loop, then the scope of I will be inside this for loop only. It will not go beyond the scope of for loop. So this is the major difference that we have. So you will use the initialization place for the I according to your need. So where you need it, right? Okay. So let's say we are starting from here only. So int I equals to 0. Here you need to understand the flow, because it's bit different from the while loop. So student get confused that because all of the three conditions or the three channels are written in the same place, so they assume each of them are happening at the same time. But no, this is not how it's supposed to be. So let's say we are printing our I, right? Here we don't need to separately write I plus plus, because we are incrementing I here only. But we need to understand where and where I is getting incremented. Like first I is starting from 0, or let's say 1, we are starting it from 1. So first increment will take place, and after that we will come into the loop. Or first this will take place, because if we are starting I from 1, we need 1 as well, right? So what will happen, what will be the basic flow is, first it will go here and I will get initialized, right? And after that, we'll see the condition. Is the condition is true? So these two things is exactly happening in the while loop and do while loop. Initialization and then the condition is checking, right? So is the condition is true? If yes, then we will go inside the means this will be your first step, this will be your second step. Third step will be like printing of the task. So first, like you'll print the I, and after when like the for loop gets end, means it's come to the last loop, and it goes again into this condition, and then your I will get incremented. So that is the last thing which is happening in the one iteration. So for if I is equals to 1, the iteration take place. So after printing or after doing all the tasks inside the for loop, after that your I get incremented, not before that. So keep this in mind. First initialization condition, then all the all the tasks will be performed, and after that your I get incremented. Now I will become 2. So output for this program will also be same, 1 2 3 up to the 10, but the flow is bit different, right? Okay. Okay, great. So let's see one code for the decrement as well. Just a second. So we can have the same code, means same syntax, for, let's say, int I will start from 10, and here we need the lower point, means where we need to stop. So it will be, let's say, 0, and then we need decrement, because it's starting from 10, it's going up to 0, right? So this will be like this. So then we can print our simply the I. There's one more concept which is very widely used in the for loop, is the nested for loop. We'll talk about that as well after this. Okay. So here, this simply you don't have to decrement I specifically like on the different place. It will be taken care of by this place itself, right? So this is the conditions. Like this is for the increment part. This is for the decrement part. So I hope it is clear, right? So yeah, this is the basic of the for loop. One more thing, you can change this increment by any number of time. Let's say I is equals to I plus 2. You can do this. It will be like 3. You can do multiplication also. So go around and play with this. How you can increment, how you can decrease your variable, and how it is working in order to get the concept. And in order to stop this, see, for in the for loop, what exactly happens, the comparison is taking place. Let's say I starting from 1, it will check 1 is less than 10, then it will check 2 is less than 10, means it will go up to 10. So this particular print statement will be performed 10 times, right? But does this condition, like the checking of the condition, how many times will it get performed? It will be performed 11 times. The reason being, 10 times for going inside the loop, and for the one time when it becomes false, when it becomes 11, that is the reason we need 11 time comparison. So printing will be done 10 times and comparison will be done 11 times. So this is one more thing that you should keep in the mind. So yeah, after this, we'll talk about the like nested for loops, how it works. So just give me a second. I'll just we can have example. What we can do is, let's say we have one star. We need to print this pattern. Okay, so we need to print this pattern with the help of loops. We are going to do this, but for now, just don't like see how we're going to do this. First, understand the concept of the nested for loop. So let's say you have one for loop outside where your I is equals to 0 and I less than let's say equals to any number of time. Okay, and then we are incrementing it by I plus plus. This is the we can open our curly braces because we need to we need to go inside the for loop, and after this need another for loop. This is because in if else statement you also studied about this nested if condition, nested if else conditions. Similarly, in the for loop as well, we can have nested for loop or nested while loops is also there. Inside a while loop, for you can implement a for loop, so it will be according to your need. So let's say we have another video for, because we cannot use the same variable inside the same scope, right? So let's say it is starting from 1 as well, and it's going up to j less than equals to 5, and then j plus plus. So this is the basic syntax that you have for your nested for loops. One loop for the outer side, one loop for the inside. So for one I is equals to 1 के लिए for loop will get printed from 1 to 5. For let's say, let's reduce this to let's say 3. So for I is equals to 1, it will get printed from 1 to 5. And for I is equals to 2, it will get printed again from 1 to 5. And for I is equals to 3, this will get printed again from 1 to 5. So this is how your nested for loop works, right? So if we need to perform this example here, what we need? So see, the number of times, let's say I was saying 3 times from 1 to 5 will get printed, like first 1 to 5 will get printed, then 1 to 5 again 3 times will get printed. So here we have 3 to 5, we have 5 rows, right? So the number of outer for loop we need is 5. And inside, what is needed inside we need j is printing for the very first time. For I is equals to 1, j is printing only one time. Next time j is printing 2 times, because this is the second row. When I become 3, J is printing 3 times. When I become 4, J is printing 4 times. So there is a correlation between I and J. These the number of stars that we needed is corresponding to the specific row. So what we can do is this J, sorry, this J will start from 1 and it will be less than or equal to I only. So yes, we can use another variable as a condition as well, a stopping condition as well. So if first I is 1, J will be equals to 1. Yes, it is true. So that star will get printed only one time. Let's say we have a star. So this star will get printed for the very first time, and here you can have one end line also, like to go into the next condition, that is system dot out dot print ln. So you can do that, system dot out dot print ln. So you can put that here. So I'm writing just a short form for that. So you can use that. So first and put a gap here. So there will be gap between two stars, right? Yes. Okay, great. So this is how you can print this statement. For I is equals to 1 means we need to print one star for the first row. So J will be only be running for one time. After that, for I is equals to 2, J will be running for the two times. Similarly, for 3, it will run for the three times and it will be printing in the same row. J will be printing in the same row and then we'll increment that, right? So this is how nested for loop works, right? Now, after that, there is one more concept which is like widely used in any of the loops, that is go to conditions. We can go from like we either we can skip or we can go from like we can skip one condition or we can if we want to break any condition. So, what are the things that we can use there is first is the continue statement and the other is the break statement. Okay. So what they're gonna do is so let's say we have a for loop, okay, and it's starting from int I equals to 1, I less than 10, and equals to 10, less than equals to 10, and I plus plus, okay. So continue and break statement. If we need to, let's say we need to print from 1 to 10, but we need to skip, let's say 5. In our output, we don't need 5. So what we can do is like we can have one if condition. If I is equals to 5, then we can do a continue. What is exactly will happen, I'll tell you in depth. So we are continuing, right? And after that, otherwise, like print ri, right? So what will happen is when I becomes equals to 5, it will go into this if condition and continue will take place, like continue will get executed. So what happen in continue is if you have any line of code after this statement inside this for loop, any number of code, they will get skipped. They will get skipped because of this continue statement. So if the compiler knows, okay, continue has been executed, it will get skipped. So for I is equals to 4, it is not equals to 5, so 4 get printed. Then increment take place, I becomes equals to 5. Continue, it goes into the if condition, it sees, okay, we need to implement continue, so it will not implement these line of code, and again it skip the part and it get incremented and it becomes I is equals to 6. So for this particular program, our output will be like 1 2 3 4. Just a second. 4, not 5, but 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So this will be the output for this particular program, right? And similarly, if you need to break the condition in between, let's say you have a certain condition, if it becomes equals to that, you need to go out of the for loop. You don't need to perform any further task, right? So similarly, we can use the break statement. So now if break statement is there, what will happen is it will not just break for the one line of code or just for one iteration, it just completely break the uh, iteration. Like if it is in the scope of a while loop or a for loop or a do while loop, it will go out of that. So when our I become equals to 5, it will break down and it will go out of that, and if we have any piece of line of code here, it will start executing that. So when I becomes equals to 5, it will get break, and it's go directly from here to outside the for loop. So it will start executing from here. And let's say if you have two for loops, okay, let's say you have two for loop and you are using break statement there. So what will happen is, just a second, you have a two for loop, right? Let's say we have one condition here, you can assume that, and inside that we have another condition, another for loop. So if we are using our break statement here, if we are using a break statement here, so what will happen is it will not go out of like both of the for loop. It will only break for the one for loop. So if when I becomes equals to 5, it breaks the for loop and it will start executing, means it will go beyond the scope of that, and it will be inside this for loop only. So you need to like keep this in your mind. If there is nested for loop and break statement is there, so it will be performed only for the inner one, not for the outer one. So this is the one thing that you need to keep this in mind, right? So yeah, this is the loops that we have. So one by one, quickly what we can do is we can implement all of the statements that we have in a compiler, right? So let's say we can perform our while loop first. So let's say int I equals to 0, and then while we need a condition. So I is less than equals to 10. Let's start it from 1 only, and then we need print. Okay, so for printing in Java we use system.out.println, and then you can print your variable. So sys out control shift. So this is a shortcut that you can use. Instead of writing every term system.out.println, you can write sys out and then you can press control plus space. So it will like autofill the condition, right? So we can print our I. And what else we need? So there is a initialization, there is a condition, and then there is we need increment. Otherwise it will go in the infinite loop, and I will print the infinite loop as well for you guys. So let's run this. So as you can see, the statement is get printed from 1 to 10. Let's say we are removing this condition I plus plus. So now we are going into an infinite loop. So as you can see, my compiler in my terminal, it is printing n number of time. It is not stopping. If you want to stop this, you have to cause an interrupt. So I'm causing an interrupt here. So now it gets stopped. Otherwise, it will not going to be stopped. So you guys need to be always keep this in mind, that you don't need to implement an infinite for loop, right? So this is your while loop. Now we can have like we can remove this and we can implement do while loop. Do, and then we need to print our I. We need initialize like increment and decrement as well, and after that we need the condition while. So while I is less than and equal to 10, and here you need this semicolon. On previously, after the while loop you have curly braces, that is the scope of your code. Here you need to put your semicolon after the while loop only. So let's print out this. So you can see we are getting from 1 to 10. Let's say we are causing a trouble, like let's say it is equals to 11. Okay, now our condition is false. If it is, if we are implementing a false condition first in the while loop, so it will not go inside the for loop. But here let's see, do exactly like in the do while loop, it will execute for the first time and after that it check the condition. So let's see. So let's see here, the output is 11. So for the very first time, it will print your value, mean it will perform all the tasks inside your do while scope. And after that, it is checking the condition. Okay, this is not true, so we need to go out of that. So this is the very important thing that you need to keep this in mind for the do while loop. Now let's have an example for loop. So for int I equals to, let's say, 1, I less than equals to 10, and I plus plus. So we need print. So we are printing. So we have initialization, we have a condition, and then we have an increment statement. So this is what we need, and just we are printing out our statement. So let's print it. So this is our output. Let's now print for the nested for loop. How the nested for loop works. So we are going to print that star format. So let's say we have int j equals to, it is starting from 1, and j will less than and equal to I, and it will be also incremented for very like only one time at a time. So we are going to just print that. Okay, star here. We need a space because for the inner loop we need j to be printed like star on the same row. So instead of print ln, we are just printing it out, and here we can have our whole statement, because for the next row we will go into the next row, and again for every I we will keeps on going into the next row. So this is what we need. Let's see it's work or not. So you can see, for there is star here, and we have that particular I that we have in our column. So you guys printed the star pattern here. So this is all we have for today's session. We have covered the basics of while loop, do while loop, and for loop, nested for loop. We have gone through the continue, go to statements. So like how to use continue and break statement. So I hope this is helpful for you guys, and you learn something from this session, right? So great. So we'll pick the question. Just a second. Okay. So let's see. Do we have any questions? Okay. विमर्श saying DSA कैसे improve करे. विमर्श, the only thing is first you need to start from your basic DSA, cover your basic DSA first. In basic DSA, the topics that comes is array, strings, and linked list. You need to first grasp the concept of those things. After that, you need to learn the intermediate, and of course, at least practice 20 to 30 question in each and every topic. So it will definitely gonna help you, and gradually keep on practicing. So yeah, you can improve that. So how to learn C++ improve on Linux? Divyanshu, to learn C++ and Java, there are plenty of resources available on the YouTube. The only thing that I'll recommend is first, obviously, learn the concept, because in a long run, concept is the one thing that matters the most. So if you're just starting right now and you're just picking one program, like are you confused in one programming language which to pick, so I'll prefer you can go, if you're just completely focusing on C++ or Java, you can pick either of them. They're completely fine in every perspective. Either is a competitive programming, DSA, or Java. So you can pick any of that, but make sure whatever the concept that you're learning, it's fine, right? it's it needs to be clear. Okay, this session was on the loops concept, not on the time complexity. That's why I haven't I haven't used any terminology of time complexity anywhere. So those students who don't know any thing about the time complexity, they will get confused. So that's the reason I haven't used that. Okay, thank you, Bhanu Prakash Reddy. What, sir? What question are asked in the coding test in AccioJob? So it's lie in the range of like basics to intermediate level only, I guess. And they you don't need to be a pro in any programming or language or DSA. So because the grooming that you required is provided inside the company, right? When you join the AccioJobs, but there will be some basic structure will be required that you should know. Okay, we'll see when okay, yeah, we will see when I'll have my next session, right? So I think we have enough for today. So I'm ending this chat and stopping my streaming right now. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming.